So if you're looking to do business in Africa, you absolutely have to understand its logistics. And today, we're going to break down one of the most critical pieces of that puzzle, the freight railway network. It's a system that's all about immense potential and some pretty significant challenges. I mean, think about it. That's one of the biggest logistical questions facing businesses today. Africa is just this continent of vast distances, incredible resources, and really fast-growing markets. Unlocking all that potential? Well, it means solving the puzzle of how to move massive amounts of goods both efficiently and reliably. And for many, the answer could be right there on the rails. And this brings us right to the heart of the matter. The promise of African rail is just enormous, right? A cost-effective, more environmentally friendly way to haul bulk commodities and connect entire economies. But the reality on the ground, at least for now, is a network that's often fragmented, pretty unreliable, and in serious need of investment. And that gap, that's what we're going to explore. So, to really get a grip on the opportunity, we have to get real about the hurdles. The network's current state didn't just happen by accident. It's a direct result of its history, its infrastructure, and, the complicated world of big-time finance. You've got to start with how these lines were originally designed. See, most of them weren't built for trade between African nations. Nope, it was basically a one-way ticket. Get raw materials from the interior out to a coastal port for export. That legacy created these isolated lines that just don't connect to each other easily, which really holds back that dream of a seamless, continent-wide network. And the technical challenges? Oh, they run deep. We're talking about aging tracks, poorly maintained that limit speed and safety. But even more basic than that, neighboring countries often use different track gauges. That's the width between the rails. For instance, a lot of southern Africa uses a narrow Cape gauge, but a lot of the new lines are being built to a global standard gauge. That incompatibility means you can't just run a train from one country to the next. You have to stop, unload everything, and reload it onto a different train. It is the literal definition of a logistical bottleneck. And all those challenges, well, they lead to a really clear result. Road transport completely dominates the logistics market. It handles something like 85% of all freight. So for shippers, this often means they just default to using trucks, even with higher costs and security risks, because they're seen as more reliable and accessible than the current rail system. So you might be thinking, why not just build new modern railways? The short answer? Money. These are mega projects that need billions and billions of dollars. And since many national governments are constrained by debt, private investors are critical. But they often get nervous about political instability, which can completely derail a project that takes decades to pay off. It creates this cycle of underinvestment that's just really tough to break. But it's not all challenges and hurdles. Not at all. It's so important to see that where there is investment and where modern management is applied, African rail can be incredibly effective. So let's look at the success stories that prove the concept. The prime example has to be Transnet Freight Rail in South Africa. It's by far the most advanced system on the continent. They run these dedicated, heavy-haul corridors that move huge amounts of bulk stuff like coal and iron ore, plus containers, to major global ports like Durban and Richards Bay. Transnet really shows what's possible when you have sustained investment and a real focus on getting the operations right. Now, this is a perfect example of rail's strategic power. Ethiopia is landlocked, right? So it depends entirely on this modern, standard gauge line for its connection to the sea. It is a genuine economic lifeline. It provides reliable and efficient access to the port of Djibouti, and from there to the rest of the world. This one railway has fundamentally changed the economic landscape for an entire country. So these success stories, they aren't just isolated incidents. They're actually blueprints for a much, much bigger vision. So let's take a look at how these projects are building towards a truly connected Pan-African network. You literally can't talk about modern African infrastructure without talking about China's Belt and Road Initiative. It has become a primary driver of new railway construction, with Chinese funding and engineering behind so many of the continent's most ambitious new projects. This investment is changing the map, and it's doing it fast. And the scope is continent-wide. We're talking about the Tazara Railway connecting Tanzania and Zambia, the Benguela Railway in Angola giving a vital corridor to the Atlantic, major new lines in Nigeria and Kenya. Now, while these projects definitely come with some complex financial strings attached, there's just no question they're laying down critical new infrastructure right where it's desperately needed. And the crucial thing here is that these new projects all follow a really clear strategy. Step 1, link the ports to the economic hubs in the interior. Step 2, give those landlocked nations a path to the sea. Step 3, start connecting these national lines to make cross-border trade seamless. The ultimate goal? To create the transportation backbone that's needed for the African Continental Free Trade Area, the FCFTA, to really take off. So, what does all of this, the history, the challenges, and this ambitious future, what does it all mean for you? As a shipper, a logistics provider, or an investor? Let's boil it down to the bottom line. All right, here's the balanced reality. For general cargo moving across different regions, rail is frankly still a high-risk option because of those reliability and fragmentation issues we talked about. However, if you're moving bulk goods, things like minerals, coal, or agricultural products, and you're doing it along one of those specific modernized corridors, then rail isn't just viable, it can be the most cost-effective and efficient choice you can make. Let's just connect these points here. You can see how the main challenges, like poor maintenance and those incompatible gauges, directly lead to the operational issues, like delays and theft. But this is where the trade-off comes in. If you're shipping the right stuff, like bulk minerals, the opportunities, lower costs, access to new markets, can start to outweigh those operational risks. It's a calculated decision, for sure. This quote really just sums up the two sides of the coin for African rail today. On one hand, you have to be realistic about the fragmented and aging network, but on the other hand, as we've seen, the long-term potential is clear. The whole system is moving toward a more connected and efficient future. So we end up right back where we started, but with a whole new perspective. The continent's rail network is truly at a crossroads, moving from a disconnected past to an integrated future. The question for anyone watching this continent's growth is no longer if rail will play a major role, but when and where. So for your business, you've got to decide, is jumping on board now a risk worth taking, or is it an opportunity you just can't afford to miss?